The air in the underground archives was always cool and dry, like inside a server. Rachel Kent liked it that way. The temperature did not change, the lights did not flicker. Rows of dark storage racks and quantum drives hummed quietly around her. On her screen, a routine customs audit scrolled past. Cargo lists, origin codes, treaty references. Nothing exciting. She checked for fraud, for missing forms, for illegal weapons tucked into boring shipments. Then a small red flag blinked beside a shipment of medical nanofibers bound for a minor alien polity called the Telas Compact. Rejected Treaty Clause 7.3, prohibited biotransfer to Earth system. Rachel frowned and opened the details. The clause number was clear. The legal citation was complete. It referred to something called Treaty of Mutual Non-Aggression and Assisted Stabilization, Galaxy-Earth Framework. She leaned closer. She had never heard of that treaty. She keyed a query into the National Treaty Database. Results? None. She checked backups. Nothing. Classified holdings. Nothing. Her stomach tightened. She widened the search to the Interstellar Treaty Network. At first she thought it was a glitch. Hundreds of alien states, then thousands, all citing the same treaty. The language lined up. The dates matched. Digital signatures from remote star systems all verified. According to the Galaxy, Earth had signed this peace agreement 30 years ago. According to every human archive she could reach, that treaty did not exist. She reserved a secure reading room and requested external confirmation from off-world legal servers. Independent archives on 3 distant stations sent back signed confirmations. Yes, the treaty was real. Yes, Earth was a party. Yes, enforcement was active. No, there was no list of human negotiators. In the small reading room, the walls were pale and bare. A single light strip hummed above the desk. Rachel requested a hard copy of the alien legal text. The printer clicked and fed out thin sheets embedded with quantum marks. She read the first line. This agreement is made with the species self-identified as human, on condition that the memory of these negotiations is removed from all parties. Her hand shook slightly as she turned the page. If this clause was true, then somewhere, somehow, an entire set of talks had been cut from reality's memory. Diplomats, leaders, witnesses, all stripped clean. Digital records bent to agree. She looked back at the customs flag, prohibited biotransfer to Earth system. If Earth had broken terms it did not remember, then quiet corrections might already have started. And if those corrections failed, the next steps in a forgotten treaty might not be quiet at all. Rachel saved the alien text to an isolated drive and locked the room. For the first time in years, the archives no longer felt stable. They felt edited. Rachel began each day in the lowest level of the archives, where natural light never reached. The elevator doors opened, and a cool gust of filtered air touched her face. She liked that moment. Above, the world changed every hour. Down here, time moved slowly, in petabytes and signatures. Her office was a narrow room with 2 chairs, 3 screens, and a wall of old paper binders that almost no one used anymore. She placed her coffee on a coaster exactly 1 thumb's width from the keyboard, as always, logged in, and ran the overnight audit report. The system showed her a map of Earth's treaty traffic, customs clearances, gate usage permissions, export controls. Each item had references to agreements with hundreds of alien powers. Her job was to check that every reference lined up, that clause numbers matched, that dates were correct, that nobody slipped illegal tech or weapons under. Harmless trade codes. Most days, the work was dull in a pleasant way. A cargo pod mislabeled, an outdated treaty version. Once in a while, a smuggler's ring trying to route banned biotech through a tiny moon colony. Those days brought meetings, reports, and extra coffee. On this day, the anomaly from the Telas Compact sat at the top of her list, still blinking for manual review. Rachel reopened the file. Shipment. Medical nanofibers. Class 3. Earth manufacture. Destination. Telas Compact Medical Depot. Gate Cluster 204B. Rejection reason. Violation of Treaty Clause 7.3. Prohibited biotransfer to Earth system. That alone was strange. The fibers were leaving Earth, not entering it. More strange, the clause cited a treaty, her own treaty indexing AI flagged as unknown. She leaned back and rubbed the bridge of her nose. The first thought was the simple one, typo. The second, a new treaty. Earth had not yet synchronized. The third, which she did not like, was that the anomaly from last night was not a glitch. She started with procedure. Query, Treaty of Mutual Non-Aggression and Assisted Stabilization, Galaxy-Earth Framework, she said, letting the mic pick up her voice. Scope, National Database, all levels, including classified. Time span, full, include deleted and redacted records. The central screen filled with request traces, down into the National Treaty Vault in Colorado, across to the secure mirror in Nairobi, through old Mars colonization legal caches, back through cold storage in the College Park. Sublevels. Results, 0 matching entries. Rachel tapped the desk. Show near matches. A few minor treaties with similar words rolled by. None matched Galaxy-Earth Framework. None had Clause 7.3. She switched to manual. The Interstellar Treaty Network required layered authentication. She passed through biometric checks, then legal authority checks. As a senior archives auditor, she had broad read-only access. Not the widest, but wider than most. Query, same as last, she said. The screen returned a different answer. Match found. Treaty ID, GX this, 004213, 7E. Common name, Galaxy-Earth Stabilization Framework. Parties, Galaxy-Level Council for Non-Aggression, Earth System, Multilateral, Assorted Regional Blocks. Rachel scrolled. The treaty text was long, with dense paragraphs about non-aggression, assisted stabilization, supervised tech transfer. It looked like a classic galaxy-scale peace framework, the kind advanced civilizations used when a young world was at risk of tearing itself apart. But Earth's side of the database acted as if it did not exist. Her pulse sped up. Could an entire treaty be present in off-world systems and absent in human ones, without setting off automatic alarms? There were checks for that. The Interstellar Treaty Network routinely compared hashes and signatures to catch missing items. Run cross-source verification, she said. The system reached out to remote nodes, gate stations, alien capitals, neutral legal servers. A web of confirmations lit up. The treaty was valid. The signatures checked out. The timestamps were clear. Signed 30 years ago, in 2144. She checked the signing location. Not Earth, not the Moon, not Mars. A neutral mediation station, marked only by coordinates and a code, NMS, DAL 112. Her training told her to log an anomaly and kick it up the chain. Her mind told her to understand what she was dealing with first. She requested a random sample of alien legal codes that referenced Treaty GX 004213, 7E. The system drew from across known space, a trading bloc under a red dwarf, a theocratic empire in a globular cluster, a cooperative of gas giant floaters. Their own laws used the treaty as a base reference, the way Earth used the Mars Ganymede non-aggression pacts. The same clause numbers appeared over and over, the same phrases. Even when translated from complex alien math logic into human legal language, the structures were exact. She opened a TILAS compact legal manual. Clause 7.3 matched the customs rejection, prohibited transfer of listed bioclasses into or out of the protected Earth system, pending full stabilization review. It was also ordinary and completely missing from Earth's side. Rachel pushed back her chair and stood up. The room seemed narrower than usual. She walked to the wall of old paper binders, ran her finger along the dated spines, 2040, 2041, 2042, and pulled out the 2144 volume. These binders held ceremonial copies of major treaties, printed once a year as a backup against system collapse. She placed the heavy book on her desk and flipped to the index. No Galaxy-Earth Framework, no GX 042137 7E. The gap was clean. The intercom chimed. "Rachel, you have a visitor," the front desk said. "He says you asked for him." "I didn't ask for anyone," she said, still staring at the blank space in the index. "He says his name is Paul Whitaker, former ambassador, deep space liaison, clearance codes check out." Rachel frowned. She had not contacted any ambassadors, yet the anomaly was clearly interstellar law. "Send him down," she said. A few minutes later, the elevator doors opened. A tall man in his 70s stepped out. His hair was white and cut short. He moved with the slow care of someone who had once rushed everywhere and now refused. He wore a dark suit with an old pin on the lapel, the tiny symbol used for Earth's first deep space mediation mission. "Miss Kent," he said. "Yes, Ambassador Whitaker." "Retired," he said with a tired smile. "Call me Paul. I got a query from the Diplomatic Records Office about an odd request flag from your account. Galaxy-Earth Framework Treaty. Curious phrase. I do not like curious phrases sitting in public audit logs. May I?" He gestured toward her office. Rachel let him in and brought up the treaty again. "I never filed a request to diplomatic records," she said. "Automatic cross-notification," Paul said. "Anytime certain phrases touch the interstellar network from Earth's side, it pings us. Has not pinged in a long time." He looked at the screen, and for a second his calm expression flickered. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tensed. "You have seen this before," Rachel said. "I remember, not this, not clearly." He sat down without asking. "About 30 years ago, I was part of a team sent to talks that were large, grand, people called them, a grand settlement. Then, all at once, the talks were off, cancelled. The phrase disappeared from our language. We moved to smaller deals. It was as if that big plan had never been on the table." He leaned forward. "I served as deep space liaison for 20 years, he said. "I remember station names, alien faces, arguments that lasted days. I remember the smell of recycled air on a neutral mediation station at coordinates very close to that NMS code on your screen. But try as I might, I cannot recall what we talked about there, or how it ended." "You think this treaty is that grand settlement?" Rachel asked. "I think," Paul said slowly, "that something very large happened, something that frightened powerful people, both human and not. And then the talk around it thinned and thinned until it was gone." Rachel turned the printed alien text toward him and pointed to the first clause. "First line," she said. He read it aloud. "This agreement is made with the species self-identified as human, on condition that the memory of these negotiations is removed from all parties." He sat back. Some color drained from his face. "That would explain quite a lot," he said, voice low. "Is that even possible?" Rachel asked. "To remove memory from everyone? Not just people, but from records, from systems, from the way history lines up?" "It was not when I started my career," Paul said. "By the time I left, there were rumors, research into deeper kinds of edits, not just deleting files or wiping minds, adjusting how reality itself stores events, but it was all talk inside rooms. No proof, no open trials, no admitted use." He looked at her with a sharpness that made him seem younger. "Who else knows you pulled this file?" he asked. "Just the system logs. And whoever saw the customs flag," she said. "Why? Because if this treaty is real, then Earth has been living under its rules for 30 years without knowing them. And that means we may have broken terms without intent. If any built-in enforcement periods exist, they could start soon, if they have not already started." Rachel thought of her morning audit list, of strange small failures that had popped up, more often in the last 2 years. Brief gate outages, odd trade rejections, navigation glitches near certain wormhole clusters. Could those be penalties? She asked. Could be, Paul said. Or warnings, the kind you send to a partner who forgot a promise. He stood up. You say the treaty is not in any human archive? Nowhere, Rachel said. Not even in cold storage. Not in ceremonial binders. Only out there. So someone, or something, removed it from us and left it with them, he said. That is interesting. Why would any side agree to that? Rachel asked. Why wipe your own memory of talks you won? Paul studied the alien text again. Because maybe both sides were scared of what they had to agree to, he said, or of what they almost did. And someone with tools far beyond ours offered a reset. We will fix it for you. You just have to let us take this from all of you. Rachel looked at the clause again, removed from all parties. But if it was removed from all parties, she said, why do the alien archives remember the treaty? Good question, Paul said quietly. Very good question. He tapped the top of the printed page with a thin finger. I know a person who might know how that is even possible, he said. Charles Irving. Neuroscience, memory backup, wild theories about universal information storage, teaches at Johns Hopkins, drives the ethics boards crazy. You will like him. I am not an investigator, Rachel said. I am a records auditor. Right now, Paul said, you are the only person on Earth who has seen both sides of this problem, our missing memory and their perfect record. That makes you something beyond your job title. He glanced at the clock. Talk to Irving, he said, quietly. I will talk to some very old contacts and see if any trace of this grand settlement remains in our own shadows. He walked to the door, then paused. Rachel, he said, not turning back, if reality can forget, then archives like yours matter more than they ever did. Be careful what you show, and be careful what you let anyone erase. The door shut with a soft hiss. Rachel sat alone, the alien treaty glowing on her screen, the printed sheets cool under her hand. Above her, the world believed it lived under a clear, known set of laws. Down here, she had just seen a gap in that belief, and it was shaped like a treaty. No one remembered signing. The train from College Park to Baltimore cut past old suburbs and new solar fields. Rachel watched rows of panels tilt gently to track the sun. It looked normal. It felt normal. That calm surface made the problem in her bag seem worse. On her lap, inside a secure case, lay the printed alien treaty pages and a drive with the original file. She had copied nothing else. No notes. No extra queries that might trip more alerts. The name Dr. Charles Irving glowed in her mind. Paul had sent a brief message from his old diplomatic line, introducing her as a record specialist with a puzzle about missing memories. There had been no mention of treaties or aliens. Johns Hopkins rose ahead, a cluster of tall, glassy structures and older brick buildings linked by walkways. Human memory research had grown here for decades. Now they worked on more than brains. Rachel checked in at the front desk of the Cognitive Systems Institute. A young assistant led her down a hall lined with displays, brain scans, simulated neural nets, glowing maps of data flows. Dr. Irving is in Lab 3, the assistant said. He asked for this meeting to be off the main schedule. Lab 3 was smaller than she expected. 2 desks, 4 wall screens, a central table with a projection rig. A man in his 50s, with dark, messy hair and heavy-lidded eyes, looked up from a cluster of displays. Ms. Kent, he said. Rachel? Yes, she said. Dr. Irving? Charles, please. He glanced at the assistant. Thank you, Nora. Close the door. The door clicked shut. Charles gestured to a chair. Paul's message was vague, he said. He said you have evidence of a large-scale memory anomaly on a civilizational level. Rachel set the secure case on the table. I have something that looks like that, she said. I need to know if it is even possible. Everything is possible, Charles said lightly. The question is how expensive it is. May I? She opened the case and slid the printed treaty toward him, careful not to show the drive yet. His eyes scanned the first lines. Then he stopped, went back, and read the first sentence 3 times. On condition that the memory of these negotiations is removed from all parties. He read aloud. That is not a metaphor, I take it. No, Rachel said. According to interstellar legal servers, this treaty is valid and active. It is referenced by hundreds of alien governments, but Earth's own records show nothing. No mention, no draft, no cancellation, nothing. As if it never existed. Charles leaned back, fingers steepled under his chin. Interesting, he said. So the treaty exists in off-world records, and not in ours, yet it claims all parties had their memory removed. That is the part that does not fit. If everyone forgot who wrote the text down, who kept it. That is why I am here, Rachel said. I am trained to catch small data errors. This is not small. This is wrong at the base. Could someone edit not just databases and human brains, but something deeper, so that the universe itself forgets events? Charles' eyes lit with a kind of sharp joy. You just used the words I have spent 10 years trying to get people to take seriously, he said. There's something deeper, the reality memory layer. He stood and walked to a wall screen. With a flick of his hand, he brought up a simple diagram, a line for time, dots for events. Standard physics, he said, treats events as things that happen, then are gone. Our memories of them live in brains, in files, in any physical process that can store information. Those are easy to erase, at least in theory. Delete a drive, damage a brain, rewrite logs. He traced another line below the first. But when you look at quantum systems, at very fine detail, you find that the universe does not just let events vanish. It remembers interactions in a deep way. Not in words or images, but in correlations, in entanglement, in the way probabilities settle. If you touch an atom here, something out there changes its state forever, in a tiny, marked way. He tapped the lower line. Some of us call this the reality memory layer. It is not a hidden magical plane. It is just a name for the sum of all those correlations, an information field that records what has happened at a fundamental level. Rachel frowned. You talk like it is real science. It is, he said. We can do experiments. For example, simple quantum erasers. You set up a system where a particle decides its path based on whether information about its past is available. Erase the information. The pattern of outcomes changes, as if the particle never knew its own path. Keep the information. Outcomes look different. He brought up a video of a lab run, dots forming patterns on a screen. At small scales, if you destroy information in the right way, you change the effective history that future measurements respect, he said. It is like editing the background memory the universe uses to keep track of what has happened. You can really change the past? Rachel asked, startled. Not in the science fiction sense, Charles said. You cannot go back and stop your grandparents from meeting, but you can change how later systems behave, as if certain details of the past were different or unknown. Done cleverly enough, you can soften a past event, make its effects less harsh or more harsh. He sighed. The problem is scale. Doing this for a few particles is easy. Doing it for a human brain is hard, but we are getting there with memory backup tech. Doing it for whole societies, whole planets, that is so far beyond our current tools, it might as well be magic. Rachel slid the drive across the table. Somebody has that magic, she said. Load this. It holds the alien treaty, as stored in the interstellar treaty network. The signatures check out. He plugged the drive into an air-gapped terminal, then used a separate isolated system to read its contents. Lines of alien text, translated into human law speak, filled the screen. Charles scanned quickly, then slowed. His face lost its playful look. There are dozens of enforcement clauses, he said. Retaliation windows, stability checks, tech bans. This is not a small agreement. This is the spine of a peace system. He checked the metadata. Signed 30 years ago, he said, on a neutral mediation station. That matches what Paul told me off the record just now. He called while you were on your way. He said he remembers being on such a station, in talks that never finished. He remembers the place. He does not remember leaving. Rachel felt a chill run along her arms. If someone edited the reality memory layer, she said, would that feel from the inside like forgetting part of a trip? Like a blank space in the story? Yes, Charles said, if done cleanly. Our normal memory systems rely on physical traces in the brain, but those traces live inside a wider net of causes and effects. If you change that net so that signals, leading into and out of a certain time, never existed, the brain would build a smooth story around the gap. I flew there, I flew back. The middle would blur and shrink. No alarms, no sense of theft. He flipped to a new screen and pulled up a folder labeled classified cases. The header showed a government seal Rachel did not recognize. How did you get that clearance? She asked. I did not, he said. This terminal is a mirror of a classified archive. I consult. They send me redacted cases. No names, no locations, just patterns. Patterns of missing history. He opened a case called Incident A19. 10 years ago, he said, a small colony world reported that a whole week of local history felt wrong. People remembered events in one order. Physical records showed a slightly different order. Core logs had no gaps, but external observation from orbit did not match. He brought up a graph, 2 lines showing different sequences of events. The internal record said, protest, then gate failure, then accidental death. The orbital sensors said, gate failure, then protest, then no death. Someone had adjusted the local reality memory layer to remove a fatal outcome. The colony's story flexed to make this okay. Only the mismatch between inside and outside viewpoints gave it away. Who could do that? Rachel asked. Not us, Charles said. The colony did not have tools that advanced. Their gear was normal. The official report said unknown external stabilizer intervention. That is a polite way to say some high-level civilization edited your history to prevent an ugly outcome, and we cannot complain because we are still alive. He opened more cases. Each showed small edits, a riot that never quite sparked, a reactor that failed harmlessly instead of violently, a military test that fizzled instead of exploding. In almost every case, he said, someone stepped in, touched the reality memory layer around an event, and made the future smoother. No big ripples, no glory, just less pain. And no one asked us, Rachel said. Would you ask a child if you should pull them back from traffic? Charles said dryly. From their view, someone just grabbed their arm for no reason. They might be upset. From your view, you saved a life. Rachel thought of the line in the treaty, assisted stabilization. So these edits are part of a pattern, she said, not just random kindness. Exactly, Charles said, a stabilization program. High-level civilizations watching for dangerous inflection points, nudging here, trimming there, always making sure that younger species do not tear themselves or others apart before they are ready for full contact. He tapped the treaty text. A framework like this would formalize their right to do that, he said, and our consent. It likely includes rules about weapons, AI, colonization, gate building. If we agreed, they would help us through rough times at the price of some control. And the price of forgetting the talks? Rachel asked. Maybe they thought open knowledge of such power would cause panic, Charles said, or maybe something went wrong in negotiations. Threats, near war, a third party might have said, we can erase this fight from your shared memory and leave only the peace terms in place. You just have to let us edit deep enough. Rachel looked at the treaty again. It says memory is removed from all parties, she said, but alien archives have perfect records of the text. How? Charles pulled up a blank screen and started drawing. Think of 3 layers, he said. Top, conscious minds. Middle, normal records, files, logs, brain traces. Bottom, reality memory layer, the fundamental information field. He drew an X through the top and middle layers around a block labeled negotiations. If someone erased the middle and top layers for the negotiation events, then no person or normal file would remember details, he said. But they could still write a new, separate object into the bottom layer, the treaty itself with signatures and terms. That object could be copied into external systems later. So the talks vanish, Rachel said slowly, but the end result, the treaty, is written as a clean fact into the universe's memory. Aliens copy it from there into their own archives. Humans do not. Or, Charles said, humans did copy it, and then someone, later, scrubbed it from our systems and adjusted our local reality memory so firmly that even our backups grew into alignment. The only place it remains is in systems far enough away, or hidden enough, that the edit did not touch them. Rachel felt a throb behind her eyes. It was like trying to picture a book with pages cut out, but the binding still the same size. Is there any way to tell from this treaty file which case is true? She asked. Not directly, Charles said, but there is another angle. Human minds are not perfect, but they are messy. Sometimes a deep edit leaves tiny scars, feelings that do not match facts, dreams that feel too sharp. If the talks were wiped, Some participants might still carry shadow traces in their neural structure. Ambassador Whitaker, Rachel said. He remembers grand settlement rumors that then vanished. He remembers going to a station, but he cannot recall the talks. Charles nodded. If he was there, he said, and if any trace of the 2144 negotiations remains in his brain, my lab's memory reconstruction tools might catch it. We cannot rebuild what is gone, but we can sometimes see the outlines of what used to be. Is that safe? Rachel asked. No, Charles said. For his mind, or for politics, pulling at erased history can hurt. And if the things that did the erasing are still watching, they might not like it. He looked at her, serious now. You understand what you are asking me to do, he said. This is not a small case. If this treaty is what it looks like, Earth has been under a galaxy-level peace framework for 30 years without knowing its own obligations. If we have broken those terms, enforcement will not stop at trade annoyances. It could reach much further. Rachel thought of the customs rejection, of minor navigation glitches stacking up, of quiet satellites failing near key wormholes. I think enforcement has already started, she said, in small ways, timed ways. The treaty mentions retaliation windows. The first window may be opening now. Charles studied her face, then the printed pages. Then we need to know exactly what we agreed to, he said, even if we do not remember saying yes. He tapped a command into his console. I will set up a secure reconstruction session, he said. Whitaker is primary subject, maybe a few others he names. We will cross-check any shadow memories we find against alien archives, offline only, no network bleed. If we can pull images of the neutral station, of the mediators, of who offered the memory erasure, it might give us a clue who has hands deep, enough in the reality memory layer to do this. And if we find nothing? Rachel asked. Then someone did their work very well, Charles said, and we will have to rely on external records alone. He looked back at the treaty. Either way, he said, this document changes what we thought the last 30 years were. The peace we enjoy is not just our own good behavior. It is partly enforced forgetfulness, a calm built on edited history. Rachel felt the weight of that settle over her. Laws and records had always been her comfort. The idea that even those could be bent from outside made her feel like she was standing on glass. What do you need from me? She asked. Copies of any alien legal references you have, Charles said, plus your own logs of the missing treaty search. Your eye for inconsistency. My lab is good with brains and quantum fields. You are good with archives. We will need both. He smiled thinly. And patience, he said. We are about to poke at the universe's memory. It will not give up its secrets quickly. Rachel nodded. Outside, students walked between buildings, laughing, carrying tablets and coffees. They had no idea that their recent history might be slightly different from what truly happened. She closed the secure case. Set up the session with Ambassador Whitaker, she said, as soon as possible. As she left the lab, the world felt the same. Cars moved, clouds drifted. But now, when she looked at the sky, she pictured not just stars and gates, but a vast, invisible record, keeping track of every event. Someone had learned how to write in that record. Someone had used that skill on Earth, and somewhere in that deep layer, an erased negotiation waited, its absence already turning into a new kind of threat. The hospital wing at Johns Hopkins had been turned into a memory lab years ago. The walls still looked like a clinic. Soft colors, calm lights, but the rooms held more scanners than beds. Cables hung from the ceilings in careful loops. Screens glowed with brain maps instead of vital signs. Rachel stood just inside Lab 7, holding a tablet against her chest. Ambassador Paul Whitaker sat in a reclining chair in the center of the room. Patches dotted his temples and the back of his neck. Thin cables ran from the patches into a cluster of silver boxes. He looked smaller without his suit jacket, in a plain shirt and soft pants. His hands were steady on the armrests, but his eyes kept drifting up to the array of machines above him. You know, he said, I have spent my life telling others to trust procedures. It is safe. We have done this before. Nothing to worry about. I do not like being on the other side. Charles Irving checked a set of readings on a nearby console. "That makes 2 of us," he said, "but we are not doing anything yet. Just baseline scans. Think of it as someone taking you a picture from many angles." "Pictures of my brain," Paul said. "My mother would have loved that. She always said there was something odd in there." Rachel forced a smile. Her own nerves felt tight and thin. She had signed 3 separate consent forms to be in the room. Paul had signed more. Behind them, in a glass-walled observation area, 3 ethics officers and a legal monitor sat with their own screens. Their presence made the whole thing feel heavier. "Last chance to back out," Charles said. "We passed that chance when someone erased part of my life," Paul said. "Let us see if we can find what they left behind." Charles nodded to a young tech at the back of the room. "Nora, start baseline sequence," he said. The lights dimmed slightly. A soft tone filled the room, more felt than heard. Rachel watched the monitors. One showed a shifting 3D image of Paul's brain. Colors pulsed and faded as different regions lit up. "Ambassador," Charles said, "for the first part, just relax. Let your thoughts wander. We want to see your normal pattern." "Normal might be too kind," Paul said quietly, but he closed his eyes and tried to breathe evenly. Minutes passed. Lines of data scrolled down Rachel's tablet. Waveforms, spikes, calm stretches. She knew nothing about the brain maps, but the steady rhythm made her feel a bit less tense. Charles glanced at the legal monitor. The woman there gave a small nod. So far, everything followed the approved plan. "All right," Charles said. "Phase 2, guided recall." He stepped closer to Paul. "I am going to ask you to think back to your time as Deep Space Liaison," he said. "Focus on any large, multi-party negotiations you remember. Say what comes to mind. Do not try to force it." "Large is vague," Paul said. "Start with what you recall as the Grand Settlement period," Charles said. "Roughly 30 years ago. The term you told me about." Paul's brow furrowed. "I remember the build-up," he said slowly. "Briefings that ran late into the night. Reports from forward scouts. Rumors about a galaxy-level council finally paying close attention to us. On the screen, regions near the front of his brain lit bright yellow. I remember travel orders," he went on. "A shuttle up to lunar orbit. Transfer to a heavier vessel. Then another transfer near the outer system to a neutral ship. Security was tight. No personal devices, no private logs. We joked about it." His voice slowed. "I remember looking out a small window," he said. "The stars looked different, denser. We left normal shipping lanes. My escort said, 'That is the point.' Do you remember the station?" Charles asked softly. "Flashes," Paul said. "A long, curved corridor. Air that tasted dry, like it had been recycled for too long. Non-human staff. Tall, jointed. I cannot fix the shape. It slides away when I try to hold it. On the displays, deep structures lit up. Parts of the brain that handled old, thick memories. At the same time, a low-level, chaotic pattern crawled along the edges, like static. That static is what we expect from an edit," Charles murmured to Rachel. "The brain reaching for something, finding nothing, and then smoothing over the gap." "Ambassador," he said more loudly, "I am going to show you some images. Some are real places you have been. Some are simulations based on alien station designs. Tell me which feel familiar, not just in how they look, but in how your body reacts. Any hint of 'I have been there.' All right? Do your worst," Paul said. The ceiling projector flicked on. A curved corridor appeared, white and blue, with human-sized doors. No response spike. Then a Martian port. Light reaction in visual areas, but nothing in memory centers. Then an image of a station Rachel had not seen before. A long ring with windows facing a faint bluish light. The interior view showed very tall doors, soft green lighting, and strange angular support beams. The air looked hazy. Paul's fingers tightened on the chair. "There," he said. "That feels close. The proportions are wrong, but the sense of it, the way the walls curve, the way the light sits, that is like a place I remember trying not to forget." Rachel saw it too. The brain map flared in several regions at once. Visual memory, emotional centers, parts that handled orientation in space. At the same time, a dark band cut across the signal in the middle, like a crack. "Hold that feeling," Charles said. "I am going to start the reconstruction process. We will not push past your limit. If you feel pain or panic, say stop." "Understood," Paul said through clenched teeth. Charles tapped a series of commands. New lines appeared on the screens, overlaying the existing brain map. Tiny pulses of light moved along them, external stimulation signals, nudging certain regions in a carefully timed way. "Rachel," Charles said, "this part may look messy. Do not panic if the readings jump." The stimulation pattern was based on data from the Incident A19 cases and others like it. In those, the deep memory layer had been altered, but the brain's failed attempts to reach it had left faint traces. By syncing light pulses and gentle magnetic fields to those traces, the team hoped to amplify any shadow signals. It was like shining a light through a torn painting to see the outline of what had been painted before. As the pattern ran, Paul's breath quickened. "I see. A hall," he said. "High ceiling. There is a smell, ozone and metal. I hear, not words, sounds. Translations running in my ear. My head feels full." Rachel held her tablet tighter. The words flowed in bursts, like someone speaking while half asleep. "There are delegations," Paul went on. "Human, of course. Then others. A cluster of small, bright creatures in a shared frame. A tall species with jointed arms. Light in the center of the hall. No, above it, hanging. Something like a knot of shifting lines. Hard to look at." His brain map whited out for a moment, then resolved into new, strange patterns. "That could be a non-physical mediator," Charles whispered. "An abstract intelligence, or a representation of something spread out in the field. Keep going, Ambassador." "We are arguing," Paul said. "My throat hurts. We have been talking for days. The word AI keeps coming up. Autonomy, self-modifying. The others, they are afraid, not of us as we are, but of what we might build. They show us models, timelines where our weapons grow smarter, go off on their own. They show worlds burned, not ours. Others." His hands trembled. "I remember anger," he said. "Someone from our side slams a fist on the table. Says, 'You let others build tools like this. Why not us?' A voice from the center light says, 'They are not in your position. Your path is different. Your risk is higher.'" The overhead projector shifted. It did not show a stock image now. It showed a blurry, pulsing scene, built in real time from Paul's brain data. Shapes were rough, colors bled, but Rachel could make out parts of it. A wide hall, a central glow, dark figures around it. "We are offered a deal," Paul said. "Old powers will share some tech if we promise limits. No colonization beyond certain zones for a time. No self-modifying military systems. No opening of some region. They call it," he frowned, face twisting, "they call it the deep black sector. No, that is not it." The word slides away. "Like transliminal? No, that is wrong." His brain map spiked wildly. The ethics officer leaned forward, hand hovering over an emergency stop. "Ambassador," Charles said gently, "pull back a bit. Just the feeling. You do not need the exact term." "The feeling is dread," Paul said, "like standing at the edge of a cliff in the dark, hearing wind from below but no sound of land. We are told there is something out there we are not ready for, that gates that reach too far, too fast, wake things best left sleeping. Some of us scoff, some believe." Rachel felt cold. Gates that reach too far sounded far too close to Earth's proud gate expansion projects over the last 10 years. "In the end, we agree," Paul went on, voice low. "We are tired. We see the models of ruin if we say no. The central light says, then this is the shape of your peace for the next 30 of your years." We sign. On the projected image, dark human forms stepped toward a glowing field and touched it. Lines of light spread from those points. Other shapes did the same. "And then," Charles asked. "And then there is a pause," Paul said. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "The central presence says, There remains the problem of memory. We assume they mean classified secrecy. We are ready to sign those papers, but they say no. That is not enough. Too many channels, too many leaks, too many fragile minds. His fingers dug into the chair. They offer an edit, he said, a cleaning. They will remove all conscious memory of the talks, not just from us, but from everyone involved. Human, alien. They will leave only the treaty, fixed in the deepest record. They say this will prevent later anger when times get hard. No one will remember how close we came to war. How do you react? Charles asked. I am horrified, Paul said. We all are. The idea of having a piece of our lives taken without recall, without proof. Some shout, some walk out, but another group, others in the hall, they argue that it is worth the risk. The peace matters more than our pride, they say, more than our right to remember. His breathing hitched. We argue like that for hours, he said, maybe days. I lose track. I feel exhausted. Then something else happens. The brain map shifted again. A deep, slow wave moved through it, like a tide. A third presence arrives, Paul said, not like the others, not from a known power block. The hall's gravity shifts, just a little. The air hums, even the old powers fall quiet. What does it look like? Rachel asked before she could stop herself. Hard to see, Paul said. Light that is also shadow. Not in a poetic sense. Sorry, I know that is banned language, but my mind cannot shape it. It speaks without sound, directly into thought. It says, you fear to lose what you are. You fear to lose your story. You would rather risk your end than forget. He let out a shaky laugh. It is right, he said. We do fear that. It says, there is a way for you to have both. You will keep a trace, a key, in your deep structure. If later, you truly need to know, you will be able to unlock more. But it will be hard and painful. You will only do it if the piece is failing. The ethics officer looked sharply at Charles, but did not hit the stop. The older powers, do they trust this presence? Charles asked. They trust its power, Paul said. That is clear. Some are wary, some bow. The central light dims a little, as if making space. We debate again. In the end, the compromise is this. Everyone agrees to the edit. Conscious memories gone. Normal records gone. But a seed remains in those most involved, planted in the reality memory layer and in our brains. If the treaty comes under real threat, that seed can be coaxed to grow. He sucked in a breath and opened his eyes. They were wet. I think I am one of those seeds, he said. I think that is why I have carried this wrong sense of absence for so long. Rachel's skin prickled. She did not like the idea of people as seeds in some deep field. Ambassador, Charles said, we are close to your safety limit. I am going to hold you in this state for one more minute. Try to focus on any mentions of specific rules, especially about AI and space regions. Then we stop. Paul nodded weakly. Rules, he said. There was a list. We argued over each. First, no self-modifying military systems, not just AI with learning. They were very clear. No systems allowed to change their own core code while under usage. No autonomous weapons that could rewrite their orders based on experience without a human or agreed overseer gatekeeping. He swallowed. We pushed back, he said. We said, we need smart defense. Others have it, they answered. You are not others. They showed us patterns where human fear plus rapidly learning weapons led to runaway spirals. Not just for us, for neighbors. On the projected scene, a side wall lit with shifting diagrams, the kind Rachel had seen in war games, but much more complex. The clause was strict, Paul said. Even dual-use tech was limited. Civilian systems allowed some self-change, but only under strict oversight, with logs kept in the deeper record. He clenched his jaw. The next big rule, no opening of marked deep space regions, he said. They drew a map, the galaxy, but stretched oddly. They overlaid zones where gates were allowed, zones to be delayed, and zones completely banned. They called the last group quiet volumes. Quiet volumes. Quiet volumes. Rachel let the term pass through her mind. She had never seen it in any human map. We were told these places were sensitive, Paul went on, not just dangerous for us, but for the balance of older systems. Some housed projects, some hid scars from past conflicts, some, they said, connected to structures we did not have words for. The promise was clear: stay out, and they would keep us safe and help us grow elsewhere. Push in, and all bets were off. Rachel thought of Earth's proud announcement 2 years ago. First human-built deep gate opens direct route to Outer Arm Cluster 5K9. She remembered the media glow, the speeches about stepping beyond old paths. Had that gate touched a quiet volume? You said those zones were marked, Charles said. Any chance your brain held onto the marks? Maybe bits, Paul said. Lines, numbers. I see coordinates in a strange grid. Not our standard gate maps, more like layers. But they slip when I look. His face twisted in pain. That is enough, Charles said quickly. We stop there. He signaled Nora. The stimulation pattern slowed, then shut off. The tones in the room faded. The ceiling projection went dark. Paul sagged back in the chair, chest rising and falling fast. Water, he said weakly. Rachel hurried to pass him a bottle with a straw. His hands shook so much she had to hold it for him. That was unpleasant, he said hoarsely. But I remember more than before. Or at least I remember remembering, if that makes sense. It does, Charles said gently. Do you feel any sharp pain? Nausea. Just tired, Paul said. And angry. Very angry. At who? Rachel asked. At myself for agreeing, he said. At them for offering. At everyone for thinking we could hide from our own past forever. Behind the glass, the ethics officers talked quietly. The legal monitor took notes. After a minute, she pressed the intercom. Dr. Irving, she said, from a legal point of view, this falls within the approved protocol. But any further deep pushing on Ambassador Whitaker will require a fresh review. His brain shows stress markers. I was not planning to repeat this on him, Charles said. We got what we needed for now. Rachel turned back to the main screen. The system had already started stitching Paul's partial images into a clearer model. The hasty, blurry scene of the neutral station hall sharpened, second by second, as the AI filled gaps, using patterns from known alien architecture. She saw long banners with symbols she did not recognize, a central cluster of light that looked like tangled glass. Only one part remained vague, the third presence. The system treated it as a void, rimmed by distortions. What about other participants? She asked. If Paul was a seed, others likely were too. Could we find them? Pull more pieces. Carefully, Charles said. We have to pick volunteers with enough clearance and mental stability. Old delegation members, translators, security staff. Each session increases the chance that someone out there notices us disturbing the edit. They turned to Nora. Start cross-matching Whitaker's reconstructed scene with external alien archives, he said. Offline mode only. Pull any recorded neutral stations that match this basic structure and date. Nora nodded and began pulling data from a bank of sealed drives. Rachel knew those drives held copies of alien records gathered through slow, careful diplomatic data trades. As the system worked, another screen lit up with a different kind of analysis. A list of treaty clauses from the alien file, lined up next to keywords extracted from Paul's recovered memory. Clause 12.1. Prohibition of self-modifying military AI within Earth system jurisdiction. Clause 12.2. Requirement of external oversight for any self-modifying civilian AI. Clause 19.4. Designation of quiet volumes. Prohibition on gate creation, travel, or observation into these sectors for a minimum period of 3 Earth decades. Renewable. Clause 27.3. Permission for stabilizing parties to enact non-lethal enforcement measures during defined retaliation windows if Earth system violates core provisions. Clause 31.1. Memory edit consent. All parties agree to allow Mediating Entity to perform limited edits in conscious memory and conventional records related to these negotiations. with deep layer seeds left as triggers under defined conditions. Rachel's stomach turned at the last line. Mediating entity, she read. That has to be the third presence, the one that spoke directly into thought. Charles nodded. The alien file names it only by a symbol, he said, zooming in on a strange mark beside clause 31.1. It looked like a looped line crossing itself twice. No phonetic name, no direct translation, just this. Has that symbol ever shown up in other treaties? Rachel asked. Not in any human-facing files I have seen, Charles said, though I have heard rumors of a third-party correction service used in extreme disputes. The name changes depending on who tells the story. Some call it the arbiter, some call it the cleaner, some call it something less kind. He shrugged. The point is, this is bigger than normal mediation, he said. This is someone with the ability to reach into the reality memory layer and adjust more than just words on paper. Nora raised a hand. I have something, she said. The offline alien archives show a station that matches 80% of the reconstruction. Neutral mediation station Delta 12. Coordinates match the treaty metadata. There is even a public star map with its rough position, though details are limited. She threw the map up on a side screen. A simple diagram of space appeared, with a dot for the solar system and a distant mark for Delta 12. Between them lay a tangled network of wormholes and relay points. Rachel stepped closer. Can we see logs from that station? She asked. Docking records, maintenance, anything from the time of the talks. We have partials, Nora said. Nothing labeled as Galaxy-Earth Framework negotiations. But there are gaps in the logs around the right dates, holes where you would expect something big. Traffic in and out spikes for a few days, then log density drops. It looks scrubbed in a way. Our systems also look scrubbed, Charles said, consistent with a full memory edit. Normal records melted into the new story. So the talks happened there, Rachel said quietly, and someone wiped not just our minds but the station's normal logs too. She stared at the station's dot on the map. It sat just outside a lightly shaded region marked with an alien symbol and a human translation. Limited gate zone. Charles, she said slowly, these shaded areas, are they the same as the quiet volumes from the treaty? Partial overlap, he said after a quick comparison. This station sits at the rim of a zone that was supposed to be limited. Not forbidden, but tightly controlled. And we have been opening gates deeper into zones like that without knowing the limits, Rachel said. Yes, Charles said. Our gate program has pushed hard in the last decade. New direct routes, experimental jumps. We may have gone past lines that the treaty calls hard walls. Rachel's mind jumped to a report she had read last month. An experimental gate in the outer system had failed in a strange way, space around it warping and refusing to settle for hours. The public bulletin had called it a local anomaly with no lasting harm. What if that anomaly had brushed a quiet volume? She looked back at the clause list. Clause 27.3, she said. Non-lethal enforcement measures. Retaliation windows. Have you matched any of those windows to recent events? I started, Charles said. The first window opened 3 months ago. It lasts for 2 years. During that period, stabilizing parties are allowed to restrict our access to certain gates, interfere with military tech, and impose trade penalties. He trailed off as another line of text expanded, and to apply calibrated disruptions to defense infrastructure as warnings. Calibrated disruptions, Rachel repeated, like navigation failures near key wormholes, trade sanctions, defense satellites glitching. Yes, Charles said, all the small things you have been seeing in your audits, they are not random noise. They are planned pressure. Nora pointed at a log on her screen. And they are increasing, she said. Gate hiccups have doubled in the last month. Trade rejections citing mysterious clauses are up by 40%. Some cargo ships report phantom obstacles near gates that then vanish when inspectors arrive. That matches the treaty's escalation chart, Charles said. If we do not correct our violations, the measures scale up. The second window, due in about 5 years, allows more direct action. Still non-lethal, but more invasive. The third window after that. He did not finish the sentence. The text on his screen was clear enough. The third window allowed limited force if all else failed. So we have already broken the AI clause? Rachel asked. For sure. Charles pulled up a separate report. It showed a network map of Earth's major defense systems. Yes, he said simply. We crossed that line years ago. Some self-modifying military systems exist in black projects. I have seen hints in other classified work. The treaty banned them completely. The older powers would know we broke that ban. They can see deep into our networks. And the quiet volumes. Rachel pressed. Have we opened any gates into zones we should not touch at all? That is harder to say, Charles said. Our maps and their maps use different grids. But I can tell you this. At least 3 of our newest deep gates point toward areas the treaty describes as to be avoided for a minimum of 1 century. We went in at year 28. Paul's voice came out tired and rough. We did not mean to, he said. We did not remember, but intent may not matter to them. Their point will be, we warned you. You agreed. You forgot by choice. Rachel felt a flare of anger. Not by choice, she said. They offered an edit when we were cornered. That is not free consent. Paul gave a sad half smile. We signed, he said. I was there. Even now, even with memory half gone, I remember lifting my hand, knowing there would be a gap afterward, and still saying yes. That is on us. Rachel looked from him to Charles. So what do we do? She asked. Do we take this to Earth's Council? To the public? If we show everyone this treaty, the world will learn its peace has been managed. That part of its history was cut. That there is a thing out there, the mediating entity, that can touch our memory at the deepest level. And the galaxy will see that we have dug into the edit. Charles said, that our seeds have sprouted. That we are trying to recall what was meant to lie dormant, unless the peace truly failed. Is the peace failing? Paul asked quietly. These enforcement actions are sharp, but they have not killed anyone. Trade hurts, but people adapt. Gates glitch, but most trips still work. The sky has not fallen. Yet, Rachel said, but if our black projects keep building self-changing weapons, if our gate program keeps poking at quiet volumes, the third window will come, and we will be standing there saying, we are sorry, we forgot. That will not go well. Charles rubbed his eyes. We have 3 choices by my count, he said. 1. Stay quiet. Work with a tiny group of trusted actors. Try to fix our violations under the radar before the higher windows open. 2. Go public. Force our governments to confront this, and hope that open pressure brings faster change than quiet warnings. 3. Try to contact whoever did the edit directly and ask for a renegotiation. Is that even possible? Rachel asked. Reaching the mediating entity, I mean. I do not know, Charles said. But I suspect if we make enough noise in the right parts of the reality memory layer, it might notice. Whether that attention is good or bad is another question. Behind the glass, the legal monitor pressed the intercom again. Dr. Irving, she said, for now, option 3 is off the table. The mandate for this project is understanding, not contact. As for options 1 and 2, that is for higher authority to decide. In the meantime, your team is cleared to continue reconstruction work on additional volunteers within tighter safety limits. Rachel glanced at Paul. Do you know anyone else who was on that station? She asked gently. Anyone you trust to sit where you just sat? Paul closed his eyes, searching. Yes, he said after a moment. Our lead translator, a systems analyst, a security officer who never liked me. I remember faces even when names blur. I can find them if they are still alive. Bring me the translator first, Charles said. Language specialists encode talks very deeply. If anyone has rich shadow traces, it is them. Rachel looked back at the treaty printout, at clause 31.1. Seeds left as triggers, under defined conditions. She read softly. The condition is here, Charles said. Violations, retaliation windows, pressure. The peace is straining. The seeds are waking up. Paul let out a long breath. Then we owe it to everyone to see what grows, he said. Later, As Rachel walked out of the lab into the setting sun, the world outside felt sharper, the wind on her face, the sound of traffic, the distant laughter of students, all real, all present. Yet now she knew that 30 years ago, humans had stood on a distant station, under strange lights, and traded a piece of their story for a chance at survival. An unseen hand had reached into reality's own memory, smoothing over fear and rage, leaving behind a quiet, ordered calm. That calm was starting to crack. And somewhere in the galaxy, high powers watched the clock on a treaty. Earth had already broken, waiting to see if humans would fix their mistakes or force a peace that no one would forget again. The audit dashboard looked like a city at night. Rachel's main screen showed a black map of known space, dotted with colored points for wormhole gates, relay buoys, and trade hubs. For years it had been mostly green. Normal traffic, normal glitches, normal life. Now, more and more dots glowed yellow and red. She sat in the dim light of her office in the underground archives, coffee forgotten at her elbow. The hum of the drive sounded louder than usual. Filter by treaty clause, she said. Galaxy-Earth Stabilization Framework, clause 27.3, enforcement references. Lines of data scrolled down. Navigation warnings near 4 major gates. Trade sanctions increased on 3 key medical exports. 2 defense satellite clusters reporting unexplained calibration shifts. The system tagged each with a small code. When she hovered over the codes, the same text appeared again and again. Action justified under GX00421337E within first retaliation window. She ran a time graph. 3 months ago there had been almost nothing. Then a slow rise. In the last 2 weeks, a sharp spike. They are increasing pressure, she said aloud. Her office door slid open. Charles Irving stepped in, hair slightly messier than before, dark circles under his eyes. He held a tablet loaded with lab data. Behind him, Ambassador Paul Whitaker followed more slowly, leaning on a cane he had not needed a month ago. You should not be walking so much, Rachel said. Your last scan. I am fine, Paul said. Besides, sitting at home while this plays out is worse for my health. Charles dropped into the chair opposite her and spun the tablet so she could see. A graph filled the screen, spikes and dips like a jagged mountain range. This is enforcement activity matched against the treaty's first retaliation window, he said. We built a model using alien legal patterns. These powers do not act at random. They follow charts even when they punish. Rachel looked back and forth between her own screen and his. The pattern matches, she said quietly. Navigation failures near gates that link to or pass close by banned zones. Trade sanctions focused on tech that can feed self-modifying AI. Defense satellite glitches in regions tied to our black projects, plus a few things you cannot see from here, Charles said. Our deep space observatories reported ghost signals near some of our more controversial experiments, bursts of interference that look artificial but leave no usual trace. When we matched the times, they lined up with small enforcement steps allowed in clause 27.3. So they are poking us, Paul said. Harder each week, making life uncomfortable. But not yet aiming to break anything vital. Not yet, Charles said. Rachel pulled up the treaty text on a side screen and scrolled to the enforcement section. During the first retaliation window, she read, stabilizing parties may employ non-lethal actions designed to A. Remind the Earth system of agreed limits, B. Restrict further violations, signal the seriousness of continued breach. She highlighted the next line. If, by the end of this window, core violations remain uncorrected, stabilizing parties may prepare for escalated measures in the second window, up to and including partial isolation of the Earth system from the interstellar treaty network. Partial isolation, Paul repeated. That would hurt. Trade, science, diplomacy. We would be cut off from aid, from trusted routes. We would still have some contact, but on worse terms. No say in higher council decisions. Treated like a dangerous child. Rachel rubbed at her eyes. How long until the first window closes? She asked. 21 months, Charles said. Give or take a few days, depending on which side's time base you use. That is not long, she said. No, he agreed. especially not for changing military projects and gate programs that have massive budgets and political support. Paul leaned on the edge of her desk, looking at the glowing space map. "Have you found any sign that our leaders know about this?" he asked. "Any hidden reference to the treaty in classified council logs?" "I have looked," Rachel said. "Backdoor queries through old mentor accounts, cross-matching names and phrases. So far, nothing. If anyone on Earth remembers the treaty, they are very, very quiet." She tapped a point on the map. "A large gate near Jupiter. This gate has glitched 6 times this month," she said. "Always when a certain class of cargo was scheduled to pass. High-end AI chips and code libraries. The official explanation is solar interference, but solar activity was normal. The alien servers cite Clause 12.1 as reason for safety checks. They know what we are doing, and we still do not have those programs shut down," Charles said. "The Defense Oversight Committee has not even been told the full story. They only see technical issues and partner concerns. So we stop sneaking," Paul said. "We tell them." "Tell who?" Rachel asked. "The Defense Oversight Committee, the Earth Council, the public. There is a difference between a closed briefing and a global announcement." Charles shook his head. "If we go straight to the public now, without a plan, we risk panic," he said. "Imagine waking up to the news. By the way, our memories were edited 30 years ago by a powerful alien mediator. The peace you live in rests on a treaty we forgot. Also, we have broken that treaty and punishment is coming. People would feel betrayed, frightened. Some might lash out against aliens, against our own governments, against each other." "And if we keep it hidden?" Rachel asked. "We let a handful of people try to fix everything quietly, while most of the world stays blind. That feels wrong." Paul sighed. "Morally wrong, yes," he said, "but we are not dealing with a clean choice. We are dealing with harm, either way. The question is, which harm does less damage?" Rachel looked at the treaty again. "They designed those seeds," she said. "You, the other delegates. Deep cues to push you to act if the peace failed. It was never meant to stay buried forever. They wanted us to remember if things went bad. Remember in a controlled way," Charles said. "Through people like Paul, and through careful work like ours. Not in a rush of half-truths spread by rumor in markets and feeds." He brought up another file. "We ran reconstruction on 2 more volunteers," he said. Aya Chen, the lead translator, and Darius Cole, a systems analyst from the delegation. Their scans support Paul's story. They remember the same station, the same rules, the same offer from the mediating entity. He tapped the screen. A short video clip played. Aya, lying in the scanner chair, eyes closed, voice shaking as she described strange math diagrams and a forbidden volume chart. Darius, frowning, trying to repeat a set of coordinates that slipped from his grasp. "Their brains also show the same seed structure," Charles said. "A pattern of deep reinforcement around certain concepts. Self-modifying military AI, quiet volumes, retaliation windows. Whoever designed the edit made sure those ideas could be pulled up if needed." "Then this is needed," Rachel said. "The seeds are awake. The enforcement has started. Hiding feels like breaking the design." Paul gave her a long look. "You want to tell the world," he said. "I want to tell the people who can actually change course," she said. "Maybe not every citizen yet, but at least the council, the heads of state, the ones who sign off on budgets for dangerous projects. They should not be making choices blind." Charles tapped his fingers on the desk. "If we do that," he said, "we also alert the galaxy. The older powers will notice we have accessed the seed layer. The mediating entity may notice. They may see it as us tampering with an agreed edit." Or, Paul said, "They may see it as us doing exactly what we promised, using the seed only when the peace is under strain. That might even gain us some respect." "Do you really believe that?" Charles asked. Paul lifted one shoulder. "I do not know," he said, "but I know this. Right now they think we are either careless or arrogant, breaking rules we committed to, showing that we remember, that we are trying to correct, might shift how they judged us." Rachel turned back to her screen. "Could we send a message through the Interstellar Treaty Network with our proof?" she asked. to the other parties, not to ask permission, but to say, we have uncovered the erased treaty through legal means. We recognize our violations. We are taking action. Charles hesitated. It is possible, he said slowly. But the network flags certain key phrases. Memory edit, GX00421337E, mediating entity. Use too many in open traffic and automatic monitors will light up. We might draw the attention of actors we are not ready to face. Paul chuckled dryly. We already have their attention, he said. These enforcement actions are not random. They are aimed. They know what we have done. They just do not know what we remember. Silence settled over the small room for a moment. A soft chime broke it. Rachel checked her alert feed. Another gate delay, she said. Cargo from the Ganymede shipyards. Destination, an orbital test range for new drone swarms. Reason, Clause 12.1 hold. That is the military AI clause again. So they are now targeting very specific projects, Charles said. They are watching closely. Rachel watched the red dot for that gate blink on her map, then slowly return to green. The cargo would get through, after a warning and some lost time. For now, what if we try a middle path? She said. We brief a small group inside Earth's Council, not the whole chamber, just the inner security circle. We also send a very short, very careful message to the Interstellar Treaty Network. No details, just a signal. Earth acknowledges existence of GX00421337E and is reviewing compliance. Charles tilted his head. Like raising a hand in class, he said, we are awake. We are listening. It tells our partners we are not ignoring them, Rachel said. And it gives us a little moral ground if we ask for more time. Paul asked, if they see that as a sign to hurry enforcement, not slow it, then at least we are acting, she said, not just waiting for the third window to hit us. Charles rubbed his jaw. I hate it when you make sense, he said. All right, let us draft two things, a council briefing and a short network notice. We run both past legal. If they reject them, we at least have a record that we tried. He looked at Paul. Can you still pull formal strings? He asked. Old contacts, favors owed. We will need someone to get us in front of the right council members without the usual delays. Paul's eyes hardened. I was not just a face at parties, he said. I can get us a closed-door meeting. Then do it, Rachel said. They spent the next hour crafting words. The council brief was careful but clear. It laid out the existence of the Galaxy-Earth Stabilization Framework Treaty, validated by multiple alien archives. The fact that Earth's own records had been edited, including conscious memories of the talks, partial reconstruction of those talks from the brains of Paul, Aya, and Darius, supported by external station logs. The main clauses Earth had broken, self-modifying military AI projects and gate openings near banned regions. The recent enforcement actions matched to the first retaliation window. The timeline, 21 months before possible isolation measures in the second window, and a later third window that allowed limited force. They left out anything that could cause extra panic without adding value. Specific details of the mediating entity's form, the scariest models of past wars, the names of black projects. The network message was even shorter. From Earth System Legal Coordination Office to Interstellar Treaty Network Administrative Node. Subject GX004213. Content: Earth acknowledges participation in GX004213 under conditions of prior agreed memory edit. Partial internal recognition has now occurred through authorized scientific procedures. Earth is reviewing current compliance status with intent to correct violations. Request: confirmation of current enforcement phase and any updated guidance from stabilizing parties. Rachel read it twice. It is honest, she said, but not self-destructive. Lawyers will still argue over every word, Charles said, as they should. Paul took both drafts and loaded them onto a secured chip. I will get these in front of people who can move them, he said. Do not send anything on your own channels yet. Too easy to block or misplace. He straightened his back. For all their flaws, he said, our leaders care about survival. If you show them a path that avoids war and keeps some control, most will take it. The danger lies with the few who see this as an insult they must answer with defiance. He left for the elevator, cane tapping lightly. When the door closed, Rachel slumped in her chair. "Do you trust him?" she asked. "I trust that he knows what is at stake," Charles said. "He remembers that station. He remembers saying yes to the edit. He will not want to repeat that mistake by choosing blindness again." Rachel stared at the space map. Red dots blinked in quiet rhythm. "Do you ever wish you had never opened that customs file?" Charles asked gently. She thought about it, about her old life of calm audits, small frauds and neat records, about how safe the archives had felt. "No," she said. "The truth was there, in the interstellar network, in alien codes, in our own shadows. Someone had to see it. If we are going to live under a peace, I want it to be a peace we understand, not one held up by hidden hands and broken promises." Charles nodded. "Good," he said, "because I have more bad news." She groaned softly. "Of course you do." He brought up a fresh report. "Remember that experimental gate in the outer system that had a strange failure last month?" he asked. "Your office logged it as local anomaly." "Yes," she said, "the one that made space near its shimmer according to pilots. We got updated sensor data," Charles said. "When we processed it using alien coordinate grids, we found that the gate's test jump brushed, the edge of a quiet volume marked in, the treaty." Rachel felt her throat tighten. "How close?" she asked. "Closer than we should ever come," he said. "Think skimming your fingers along the surface of a storm you were told never to enter. Something on the other side, noticed. That may explain the strange interference bursts and the sudden sharp increase in enforcement after that day. So we not only broke the AI rule," she said softly, "we also tapped on the wall of a place they told us to stay away from for at least 100 years. "Yes," Charles said. "From their view, that is us walking straight toward a cliff they built a fence around." She rubbed her forehead. "Can we shut that project down?" she asked. "Freeze the gate, lock its plans, without admitting why?" Charles asked. "Maybe, but if we do not tell the project leads the real reason, they will fight the freeze. They think their work is safe. They do not see the fence." Rachel watched a red dot flare on the map near the outer system. It was not just about finds or lost cargo anymore. They were pushing against something in deep space that older powers considered dangerous enough to mark off limits. Her terminal pinged with a priority message. She opened it. From Office of the Council Secretariat, she read, "Ambassador Whitaker has requested an emergency closed session with selected council members and technical advisors. You are hereby summoned as an expert witness and records representative. Attendance required in person. Tomorrow, 09 UTC. Do not discuss contents of this notice outside cleared channels." She looked up at Charles. "They agreed to meet," she said. "At least that," he said. "We will see if they are ready to listen." He stood. "I will prep the technical side," he said. "Diagrams, models, memory reconstruction summaries. You bring the legal and archival proofs. Together we make it hard for them to look away." Rachel nodded. "And the network message?" she asked. "Wait until after the council meeting," he said. "If they forbid it, we will have to decide how far our duty goes. But let us give our system a chance to act before we go over its head." That night, in her small apartment above a quiet street, Rachel lay awake long after the city lights dimmed. Outside, delivery drones floated by, their lights blinking in slow patterns. In her head, other lights blinked, red and yellow dots on a vast star map, marching towards some unknown line. She thought about the mediating entity, the presence Paul had tried to describe, a thing that could touch the deepest record of events, a thing that had given them a chance to forget and start fresh. Had it expected them to keep the rules more carefully? Or had it assumed they would stumble and built the seeds as a backup plan? She did not know, but she knew this. The first retaliation window was not just a legal phrase. It was a real period with real actions already pressing on Earth's systems. And if they failed to respond now, the second window would come. Then the third, and the hands that had once smoothed their history might choose, next time, not to be so gentle. The next morning, as she rode the secure tram toward the council complex, Rachel watched the sky through the reinforced glass. The sun rose over the curve of the Earth, bright and steady. Satellites traced silent paths high above. Some of those paths were already bending, ever so slightly, under the weight of a treaty no one remembered signing. Today, at least, a few more people would be told the truth. Whether that would be enough to repair a piece written into the universe's own memory, she did not yet know. The council chamber felt too bright. Rachel stood near the side wall, close to a bank of displays, trying not to stare at the curved rows of seats that climbed up around the central floor. Flags and symbols of Earth's regions hung high above. Screens showed a live feed of Earth from orbit, slow and calm. It looked like a place made for reason. She held a slim case with the printed treaty, her tablet, and a stack of certified copies of alien references. Her palms were damp. Charles Irving stood beside her, papers tucked under his arm, a small data cube in his hand. His hair was combed for once, but the dark circles under his eyes were deeper than ever. Across the chamber, Ambassador Paul Whitaker sat at a witness table. Leaning slightly on his cane, two other chairs beside him were occupied by Aya Chen, the translator, and Darius Cole, the systems analyst. Both looked pale. Near the front row of seats, a line of council members and senior officials filed in through a side door. Their faces were familiar from world feeds. Chairwoman Lila Ben-Masri of the Earth Council, Defense Secretary Jay Kim, Trade Director Maria Alvarez, and others Rachel knew only from reports. The doors sealed with a soft thud. A red light above them turned on. Closed session, no broadcast. Chairwoman Ben-Masri stood. "This emergency session is now in order," she said. Her voice was calm, but hard. "The agenda item is listed as Treaty Anomaly GX004213. Ambassador Whitaker, Dr. Irving, Miss Kent, Miss Chen, Mr. Cole, you asked for this session. You have my attention. Impress on us why this could not wait." Paul rose slowly. "Madam Chair, honored council members," he said, "thank you for seeing us on short notice. What we are about to present concerns the legal basis of our peace with the wider galaxy. It concerns a treaty Earth signed 30 years ago and then forgot." A low murmur ran through the chamber. The chair raised a hand. "You will explain that last word," she said. "We will," Paul said. "But first, Miss Kent will show you a simple fact, that every major alien power in our contact sphere believes a certain treaty exists. A treaty they say we signed. A treaty that none of our own archives record." He gestured to Rachel. Her heart thudded faster. She walked to the central display, slotted her tablet into the port, and brought up the visual she had practiced all night. "Council members," she said, "this is the Interstellar Treaty Network view of a document labeled GX004213-7E, common name, Galaxy-Earth Stabilization Framework." The main screen at the front of the chamber lit up. Rows of alien icons appeared, symbols of polities scattered across known space. In the center, highlighted, was a block of text labeled in human language, Treaty of Mutual Non-Aggression and Assisted Stabilization, Galaxy-Earth Framework. Next to it, a line that read, Party, Earth System, Multilateral. "These are signatures and confirmations from over 600 alien governments," Rachel said. "They all reference this treaty. They all agree it is in force. I have verified digital signatures, timestamps, and cross-links. This is not a forgery." She tapped a control. A second window opened, showing the result of a search in Earth's own national treaty database. Search GX004213-7E, Segults, Point Virch. "This is our side," she said. "No entry. Not in current records. Not in deep backups. Not in ceremonial archives. It is as if we never signed it." Defense Secretary Kim leaned forward. "Could it be a slander?" he asked. "A fake treaty aliens use to justify pressure." "We considered that," Rachel said. "If it were fake, signatures would not match, and references would conflict. Instead, references are consistent across cultures that do not even like each other. The treaty appears in neutral archives we have trusted for decades. Third-party verification checks out, and multiple alien enforcement actions in the last months have cited specific clauses from this document." Trade Director Alvarez frowned. "Enforcement actions like what?" she asked. Rachel brought up another layer, a map of gates and trade flows with red and yellow points. Navigation failures near key wormholes that link to sensitive regions, she said. Trade sanctions on specific AI-related exports. Interference with certain defense satellites, all labeled on alien servers as Clause 27.3 enforcement during first retaliation window. The words retaliation window appeared in bold on the big screen. Chairwoman Ben Masris' eyes narrowed. A retaliation window for what? She asked. For violations of core rules, Rachel said. Rules we agreed to in this treaty and then broke. Rules about self-modifying military AI and forbidden regions of deep space. A sharper murmur moved through the chamber. The chair raised her hand again. I see violations. I see enforcement. I see a treaty in their archives, but not ours, she said. That still does not explain forgot. Paul stepped to the front again. Because the treaty itself contains a clause you were never told about, he said. Clause 31.1, memory edit consent. He nodded to Charles. Dr. Irving can explain the science, Paul said. But first, let me say this clearly. 30 years ago, at a neutral mediation station outside our system, I and other delegates agreed to let a third party remove conscious memory of those talks from all participants, including us, including the alien side. In exchange, that third party wrote the treaty directly into the universe's deeper record. Aliens copied it from there. Our records were scrubbed. Our minds were scrubbed. The chamber fell so silent, Rachel could hear the faint hum of the air system. Chairwoman Ben Masris' hand gripped the edge of her podium. You are telling this council, she said slowly, that you consented to have part of your mind and our legal record edited by an outside power. Yes, Paul said. We did, under heavy pressure, with models of war and ruin in front of us. We thought we were sacrificing our own memory to secure a peace that would outlive us. We were wrong to hide it. We were wrong to trust that the edit would never need revisiting. She looked like she wanted to shout at him, but something in his face stopped her. Charles stepped forward. If I may, he said, I need to explain that this is not just mind erasure in the old science fiction sense. It is deeper. It touches what some of us call the reality memory layer. He quickly laid out the basics, how the universe keeps fine-grained information about events, how small quantum experiments had shown that erasing certain information could change effective histories, how classified cases had revealed quiet edits to soften past disasters. In those cases, he said, unknown actors trimmed away the worst outcomes. The final story still made sense. People remembered something bad, just not as bad as it truly was. Records lined up. The background field was adjusted just enough. Long clock diagrams of the brain maps from Paul's and IS reconstructions. When we scanned Ambassador Whitaker and others, we found patterns consistent with a large, deep edit, he said. They remember traveling to a neutral station. They remember the sense of long talks, but the core details were missing, covered by noise. Our reconstruction experiments, guided by external alien records, pulled up fragments, images of the station hall, non-human mediators, rules about AI and forbidden space, and a third presence that offered to take the memory of those talks from all of us in exchange for planting only a seed in our deep structure. He highlighted Clause 31.1 on the screen, translated into human language. All parties agree, he read, to permit the mediating entity to perform limited edits in conscious memory and conventional records related to these negotiations, while preserving deep layer triggers in designated delegates to activate if the integrity of this framework comes under imminent threat. He let the words hang. You called it the mediating entity, Chairwoman Ben Masri said, eyes on the strange symbol. Do we know what that is? No, Charles said. We know only that it is not tied to any one power block. It appears in the treaty as a special sign rather than a normal name. Our delegates describe it as hard to look at, a presence that spoke directly to thought. Whatever it is, it has the power to adjust reality's underlying record in ways we cannot. Defense Secretary Kim shook his head slowly. This is wild, he said. Why should we believe these reconstructed memories over the lack of any written record on our side? Because alien records line up with them, Aya Chen said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was quiet but firm. I was the translator on that delegation. When Dr. Irving's lab pulled images from my brain, I saw diagrams I recognized as alien legal structures. When we compared them to offline alien archives never touched by our systems, they matched. The same station layout, the same enforcement charts, the same phrase, quiet volumes for forbidden regions. She paused, and because I feel the absence, she added, for 30 years I have had the sense that there was a hole in my career, a weak I could not place, a term, grand settlement, that people used and then stopped using, as if swallowed. When the reconstruction showed me the hole, the central light, the presence offering the edit, it fit into that hole. Darius Cole nodded. I saw the Forbidden Zone maps, he said. Not clearly, but enough to be sure they are the same pattern as some of the strange interference regions our gate experiments have touched lately. Rachel stepped in again. Council members, she said, you do not have to accept our theory about reality's memory layer today. You do not have to understand every quantum detail. What you do have to accept is this. The galaxy is acting as if this treaty exists. They are enforcing it. Our own people, under oath and under scan, recall enough to match that, and our current behavior violates several key clauses. She tapped a control. A short list appeared on the big screen. Clause 12.1. No self-modifying military AI. Clause 19.4. No gate creation or travel into designated quiet volumes for at least 100 Earth years. Clause 27.3. Non-lethal enforcement measures allowed during first retaliation window. Clause 35.2. Total review of framework at 60-year mark, contingent on compliance. We have broken Clause 12.1, she said. We have built self-modifying military systems. We are in the process of breaking 19.4. Our experimental deep gate brushed a quiet volume last month. That may be what triggered the spike in enforcement you have seen as technical issues. Trade Director Alvarez's face had gone pale. You are saying the gate failure out near the Oort cloud, she said, was not just bad luck? No, Charles said. We processed its sensor data using alien coordinate systems. The test jump's far end touched the edge of a zone marked forbidden in this treaty. Something out there noticed. The enforcement pattern intensified afterward. Chairwoman Ben Masri tapped a finger on her podium. Let us assume for the moment that all of this is true, she said, that there is a hidden treaty, that we agreed to let our memory be cut, that we have broken its rules, that our partners are now squeezing us, gently at first. What do you want us to do? Rachel glanced at Charles, then back up at the council. First, she said, we need to stop making it worse. Freeze all self-modifying military AI projects. Not later. Now, shut down the deep gate experiment that touched the Forbidden Zone. Pull back any probes aimed at quiet volumes. Defense Secretary Kim stiffened. You are asking us to halt programs that cost trillions and that some see as key to our security, he said, based on alien files and reconstructed memories. I am asking you to choose which danger you fear more, Rachel said. The danger of defying a galaxy-level non-aggression framework we already agreed to, or the danger of slowing weapons that may backfire on us as badly as on anyone else. She pointed to the treaty list. Second, she said, we need to formally acknowledge this treaty to our partners. A short message on the Interstellar Treaty Network. Earth recognizes GX004213-7E, is reviewing compliance, and intends to correct violations. That buys us moral ground, maybe time. And third, the chair asked. Third, we need to decide how far to share this with our own people. Rachel said, do we keep the memory at its secret, fixing things quietly, or do we tell the public that part of our past was shaped by an outside hand? The room buzzed again. A council member from the African Union bloc spoke up. If this gets out uncontrolled, it will cause shock, she said. People will feel stolen from, even if you tell them it prevented war. I know, Rachel said, but the seeds the mediator left in our delegates were not meant to stay dormant forever. They were meant to push us to act when the peace strained. That time is now. If we hide everything, we repeat the same mistake. trusting that ignorance keeps us safe. Paul lifted his hand. "I will take blame," he said, publicly, if needed. "I was there," I agreed. "I can say, we thought we were protecting you. We were wrong to erase your right to know." Chairwoman Ben Masri looked down at him for a long moment. "You would stand in front of billions and say that?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I have carried the shape of this lie in my bones for 30 years. It is heavy. I am tired." Silence again. Defense Secretary Kim broke it. "There is a third path on the public question," he said. "We do not have to choose between full secrecy and full disclosure today. We can brief key committees. We can quietly wind down risky programs. We can send the network message. Once we stabilize, once enforcement eases, we can plan how to tell the wider public with context, not panic." Rachel's first instinct was to protest, but then she thought of people waking up to chaotic feeds filled with half-true rumors of stolen history and mind control aliens. She thought of angry marches, of attacks on embassies. "A staged reveal," she said slowly. "Not never. Not now. Later, when we have something hopeful to say as well as frightening." Chairwoman Ben Masri nodded slightly. "That is the only politically sane path," she said. "But it depends on us being able to calm our partners." She turned to Charles. "Dr. Irving," she said, "you spoke of a mediating entity, the symbol in clause 31.1. Is there any safe way to contact it? To ask for guidance, or an extension, or even a revision of the terms?" Charles hesitated. "This level of being is beyond us," he said. "We do not know its nature. We do not know its motives. We know only that it can act on the deep record. Poking it directly could be seen as defiance. But," the chair pressed, "but the seed mechanism itself is a kind of contact," he said. "We have already tugged at the edges of the edit, our reconstructions. This meeting, these may have shown up in the deeper layer as unusual patterns. It may be watching." A chill slid down Rachel's spine. The thought of something vast and unseen watching through the universe's own informational field made her feel very small. "If it is," Charles went on, "then our best message is not some artificial ritual, but our actions. Halt the violations. Admit the treaty. Show that when the seed triggered, we chose responsibility, not denial." Trade Director Alvarez looked at the enforcement chart. "And if that is not enough?" she asked. "If they push into the second window anyway? If they start isolating us from the network, blocking routes, cutting data, freezing assets? Then we will have to adapt," Chairwoman Ben Masri said. "But we will adapt from the position of people who know what is happening, not from the position of victims of mysterious glitches. I prefer to face a storm with eyes open." She looked around the chamber. "You have heard their case," she said to the other members. "The evidences, the risks, the choices. I will now call for an initial vote on 3 actions. Item A, immediate suspension of all self-modifying military AI projects and a review of related civilian systems. Item B, immediate freeze of gate activities in suspected quiet volumes, including the outer system experimental gate. Item C, transmission of a limited acknowledgement message regarding GX004213-7E on the Interstellar Treaty Network." She paused. "These are not final decisions on public disclosure," she added. "Those will be debated later. Today, we decide whether to stop walking toward the cliff." The voting system lit up on their desks. Rachel watched the bars rise. Item A, 14 in favor, 2 against. Item B, 15 in favor, 1 against. Item C, 13 in favor, 3 against. Chairwoman Ben Masri exhaled, just a little. "Items A and B pass with strong support," she said. "Item C passes with a smaller margin." The motion carries. Defense Secretary Kim still looked troubled, but he nodded. "I will issue the suspension orders to Defense," he said, "under security cover at first. I will take the heat." Trade Director Alvarez spoke as well. "I will coordinate with gate authorities," she said. "We will call it a wide area safety review." The chair turned her gaze back to Rachel, Charles, and the delegates. "You have given us unwelcome news," she said. "You may have also saved us from walking blind into something worse." We will establish a closed working group, defense, trade, science, archives, diplomacy, with you as technical leads. You will report directly to this council on compliance progress and any new information from your reconstruction work. Rachel swallowed. Yes, Madam Chair, she said. And the public? Aya asked quietly. What do I tell my family? My students? For now, the chair said gently. You tell them only that you are involved in sensitive work. That may change. When we speak to the world, you will not be asked to lie. We will need your voices then too. The session wound down with formal phrases and procedural steps. As the red closed session light dimmed, Rachel felt something inside her loosen. They had done it. The council had seen the treaty, believed enough to act, and voted to pull back from the worst edges. On the tram back to the archives, the city looked the same. Clean towers, slow traffic, people checking feeds as they walked. But now Rachel knew that, somewhere in the Defense Ministry, projects were being halted. Somewhere in the Gate Operations Center, paths were being marked off limits. Charles sat across from her, staring at a small display. The network message just went out, he said. The council revised our draft slightly, but the core is the same. Earth acknowledges. Earth reviews. Earth intends to correct. Any response? She asked. Too soon, he said. Signals to and from the network take time to move through the gates. And even then, we may get silence, or subtle shifts, not a clear message. Paul, sitting beside her, closed his eyes. I felt something, he said softly, when they voted. When the message went, a kind of pressure easing. Maybe it is just my nerves, or maybe the seed in me noticed. Rachel looked out the window at the sky. If the mediating entity exists, she said, do you think it approves? Charles gave a crooked smile. If it does, he said, it can file a favorable report with whatever counts as its superiors. Rachel let out a short breath of laughter, then grew serious again. We are not done, she said. We still have people whose lives were edited without consent. We still have a galaxy that knows more about our past than we do. We still have a deep gate that brushed something we do not understand. I know, Charles said. But for the first time since you opened that customs file, I feel like we are moving in a direction that is not just down. As the tram slid into the tunnel that led toward the archives, Rachel thought of the reality memory layer. Charles had described the deep record of events written into the universe itself. 30 years ago, someone had written a piece into that layer while scraping away the pain and fear that led to it. Today, Earth had taken a small step toward writing honestly again. Whether that would be enough to repair trust, to calm the retaliation windows, and to shape a future where no one had to trade their memories for safety, that was still unwritten. But for now, Rachel had her job: guard the records, watch the gates, and make sure that this time the story stayed on the page.